And welcome to the PHLY Sixers Postgame show here on the podcast. Fantastic time to watch the Breakers and the Sixers as the Sixers walk away with a lopsided 139-84 victory on this great Monday to start the preseason schedule, and a lot of good things to talk about in their victory whenever you win by close to 100 points. Basically, that's what it seemed like in this one. A lot of good things to talk about. Rich Hoffman, Devon Givens with you here on the PHLY Sixers postgame show. And we are, of course, presented by our good friends from Bet365, Rothman Orthopedics. And it's always great to be here with you for some post-game coverage. Kyle Neubeck will join us, or Derek Bodner. One of the two. One of the guys will join us for some post-game coverage live from the arena following this victory over the Breakers. But just as we expected, man, this was a lopsided one for sure against this Breakers team. Overmatched, as we knew.
You think?
I think. Overmatched in this one, and man, did it show. A lot of storylines in this one, but 4 players reaching a team best, 15 points for the Philadelphia 76ers. Tyrese Maxey totaling his in the 12 minutes of the opening frame. We didn't see him anymore after that. Reggie Jackson came in to start the third quarter. He scored 15 points.
Just for kicks.
Just for kicks. And then it was the other two that really we'll get to, and that's Guerschon Yabusele and Jared McCain, also totaling 15 points and looking pretty good, man. So your initial thoughts, Rich, on this one, as we saw 4 guys post 15, but it was really about, and look, we can't overlook Tyrese Maxey saying, ho hum, let me drop 15 in the opening quarter and then sitting down.
Get him out of there.
Or Reggie Jackson coming in the third and dropping his 15, but it was really about those two new guys, and Jared McCain, the rookie, and the older guy, but young in NBA years, Guerschon Yabusele.
Yep. Look, I think we were talking about this before the game, man. I think we thought, hey, this is going to be kind of a pressure-free, easy, fun little jaunt to a win, and that's exactly what happened. Look, man, I think just from the start, the starting lineup, they did all the stuff that they were supposed to do. You know, I was, looking at some of my notes. Andre Drummond, contested rebound. Okay, that's what he's supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Eric Gordon, deep 3, and he was pulling off a couple of those wide pin downs. Eric Gordon is known as the deep 3-point shooter. Caleb Martin, attacking the rim, being athletic, being kind of fearless, and sticking his nose in there. That's what he's supposed to do. Hopefully he does that for the Sixers in May and even into June. I think that's why they brought him aboard this offseason. And then Tyrese Maxey being the best player on the floor by a mile and just, getting to the rim. He had that nice finish, all those things. So I think that is my overarching take, is that the starting lineup did what they were supposed to do. And frankly, everybody that came in after him did the same thing, right? Like the Sixers looked like the NBA team out there, and the Breakers were not. I think if the Breakers, I said this before we came on the show, but if the Breakers see the Sixers in the playoffs, man, I don't like that matchup for the Breakers, bro. I don't think they have a chance against them. But no, honestly, it was a good way to start. Obviously, I think both of us knew they were going to beat them pretty bad. Although it was funny, we looked up midway through the game. We were like, was there an actual line on this one? And the answer was there was a line. I think it was like 33.5. Sixers covered pretty easily too. But yeah, it was fun. I mean, look, it wasn't the greatest competition in the world, but we saw a lot of the Sixers do the things that they're supposed to do and showcase a lot of their positive attributes. So I think that's something we can build on as they move through the preseason. And I'm sure these games are going to get a little bit more competitive, but that's okay. Good start.
Good start. I mean, listen, whenever you're practicing and playing against each other for not just this week of training camp, but for them to be out there getting back together a few weeks ago and starting their open runs at the practice facility, playing together, some of them in Summer League, also playing together, some of them with the Rico Hines runs. They've been playing against one another for a long time, and to finally see somebody else in a different uniform across from them and go out there and execute the things that they wanted to, this was a good start for what it is as a preseason 6-game schedule for them to go out there and handle their business against this basketball team, have a few days off, and then take on the Minnesota Timberwolves on Friday.
What did you think of the Breakers jerseys there?
Not a fan.
No,
No.
not a fan of the pink. Are you not a fan of?
I like pink things, but I just wasn't a fan of that particular uniform. It wasn't my favorite.
Feels like those overseas teams they get a little creative with
Yes,
it.
they
Right?
do. Yes, they do. Remember when Charles Barkley said back in the day where the what was that, the 91, 92, somewhere 93 uniforms before he went to, no, that was 91 or so, because 92 was the
Sixers
dream
uniforms?
team. And he said his daughter, one with the stars on it. And he said it looks like something his young daughter at the time colored in school. So creativity is part of some NBA uniforms. And that has now become more of a fashion statement when some of the places start to remake those uniforms and those jerseys from back then. But that being said, no, I'm not a big fan of these. But
That's fair.
look, the story in this one with Yabusele and McCain, just going back to draft night when we talked about it in the pregame. Draft night, it's only the Breakers, but it was a professional team opposite him. And he came out and showed why they at least drafted him to start his NBA career, which is that shooting. And that shooting, man, he had back-to-back threes. He had 3 in that second quarter. 2 of them, those no-dip Nick Batum type threes, catch and shoot, very high release.
Love those.
And
Should get 4 points for those.
you should. And it looked very, very comfortable. In order for him to get on the floor, Rich, of course, he has to be as close to a positive on the defensive end and not be a negative if he's out there. But it's really about his shooting.
Yeah, and look, I think that the defense. I think Kyle, if anybody reads his observations, he pointed out that he was not crazy about McCain's defense, considering
the competition.
The competition they were playing. There were some blow-bys. He was getting hung up on some screens. That's okay. I think the Sixers team is going to have enough defense, enough physicality that he can survive on the floor if he's knocking down threes. And it's like you said, if he's spacing the floor off Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid, that is his ticket to play right away. And he did a good job, right? He got hot, and then he started to miss some threes as the game went on. It really does feel to me, at least Devon, early on, because we saw him struggle in Summer League when really the whole opposing defense, like, I'm not saying Summer League has like the greatest scouting reports in the world, but he is the top name on the scouting report for them. I think when he becomes a secondary player and he's more of a spot up guy, he could be a lot more dangerous because number one, that shooting is just going to play anywhere, and number two, like, he doesn't have to worry about trying to get into the paint and create all of that on his own. Like, he can attack a closeout. He can continue to swing the ball, those type of things. So I liked what I saw from him. He's one of the, we're going to go down the list. I'd say about 11 or 12 guys showed up and I think acquitted themselves pretty well. But he was certainly one of them, and he was one of the guys that we were looking forward to before the game.
Yes, he was. Yeah, I mean, that was one that we talked about because of the outside shooting, and you mentioned it. Shooting travels in whatever arena, whatever state you're in. So if he can knock down those shots, that's a big plus for this team. And Reggie Jackson, we spoke about him. I mean, the fact that the team overall is on the night 3-point shooting, they shot 17 for 37. Put it here in my notes. I think it was at halftime. Let me just double check. At halftime, the team was 10 for 16 overall from beyond the 3-point line. So they only made 7 more for the rest of the game, but they did all their damage, of course, against this basketball team in those first 2 quarters to lead 82-45 after 24 minutes of play. The defense that Kyle is talking about in his game notes, you bring up right now, he wasn't the only one. No. It was Justin Edwards being, basically being blown by on the defensive end as well. Ricky Council, who we talk about him getting on the floor, is his effort, his energy, and his defense, hitting that outside shot. Got caught on the spin move really quickly that he felt like it looked like his feet were planted to the floor. And Jared McCain, this was his first NBA game as well. So while we know he has to get ready to the NBA speed on the offensive end, he has to get used to the NBA speed on the defensive end. While these were not NBA level players, he has to get better at that. But it's game 1. As much as we don't have to get overly confident about his shooting on the offensive end, we can't get too worried just yet, at least about the defense in game 1 of his preseason debut. But yeah, certainly some things to look out for.
So you mentioned Reggie Jackson. I just want to say something before we get back to McCain. It was pretty mean to just throw him out in the third quarter. After just kicking their butt for the entire first half, to throw that guy who is like a professional bucket getter.
Yeah,
and I don't, he's like exactly the type of guy who's going to be 60 years old at the Y, just handing out buckets of people.
Him and Jamal Crawford,
yes,
man.
Exactly. And he a couple of those crossovers, he was creating just acres of space for some of those jumpers. It was pretty mean to just throw him cold off the bench and just ready to get buckets in the second half. Let me ask you a question on McCain. Heading into the season, let's say night one, let's say this entire team's healthy. We don't see any injuries. I was actually a little bit worried about Andre Drummond. That was a pretty ugly fall. I believe it was on that spin move that Ricky Council got blown by.
Exactly.
My guy just completely, my guy on the breakers completely just lost his footing and went right into Drum's knee. Seems like Drum's okay. That's the type of play where if that happens to Joel Embiid, everybody's holding their breath, like still, for another, couple hours until Joel gets back on the court the second time. Honestly, like he can make it through the first game.
Yep.
But let's say everybody is back.
Yes.
Let's say everybody is healthy. Do you think Jared McCain is in the rotation on opening night?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Because you saw Kyle Lowry early. He did Kyle Lowry things. He went out there and did exactly what Nick Nurse and the coaching staff asks of him. So he's going to be in the rotation. Eric Gordon, as you mentioned, with the outside shooting guard, he's going to be in the rotation. And the same for Reggie Jackson, maybe a little bit deeper in the rotation. But if they look for an opportunity to bring in someone off the bench to be that scorer, it's going to be Eric Gordon, Reggie Jackson over Jared McCain. As hot as the shooting, he has to, Rich, go the rest of the way with these next 5 games and shoot in a similar fashion. He was 4 for 9 tonight, but they were good looks. It looked the same every time. And again, going back to back, the no dip threes, knocking those down. That was very encouraging to see that. He has to shoot that way the entire way of this preseason to be in the rotation against the Milwaukee Bucks on the 23rd of this month as they begin the season. So I would say no, he's not. I would say he's in uniform. He's on the bench, and should things happen in a blowout situation, he'll take the floor against that Bucks team. But I would say right now, today, it looks like for me, Lowry, Jackson, and Gordon will be ahead of him in the rotation. That's going to be hard to crack, man, because they can shoot too. And they at least, to bring up Kyle's point of the defense, Kyle Lowry we know for sure. But Reggie Jackson and Eric Gordon are veterans who understand defensive assignments, cutting off angles in the NBA, where that should not be a problem against way better talent against the Bucks and others versus what we saw tonight against the Breakers. And I'd imagine that Nick Nurse is not willing to give up 2 points in a game like that.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe there will be some chances for McCain to get on the floor because Lowry's, he's not going to be an 82-game player at this point, right? They're going to give him some time off. But yeah, it's a pretty crowded backcourt, right? You have Maxey, and then whoever you want to say is the de facto 2 in the starting lineup. Let's say it's Kelly Oubre right now. Yeah. And then you have Lowry and Gordon, and then Jackson. Who's fighting for minutes with. Now he got on the floor before Jackson tonight. I don't know if I want to read too much into that. They put in Reggie Jackson, I think, in part because they played Maxey the entire first quarter, and they said to Reggie Jackson, "Go ahead, you start the third quarter and just do what you do."
Get a sweat.
Yeah. So yeah, I think at least initially he's gonna have to beat out some of those vets. I mean, Nick Nurse, they had a good developmental track record in Toronto, but I think in general he trusts his guys. I mean, Kyle Lowry is one of his. I mean, he might be the quintessential Nick Nurse guy. Yeah. So yeah,
like one of his favorite people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think he's going to have to earn it in the middle of the season. That's okay. That's not a big deal because the Sixers were able to get what I thought were a lot of decent players on minimum type contracts and get these guys in here. So yeah, decent start for Jared McCain. So I think that's about it we got on him. Yeah, no, I like the shooting. Like the quick release on those threes is a huge deal. And somebody who's willing to take those shots and somebody like, I think we said this during Summer League. Like I was a little bit worried about his ability to create in Summer League. And it was something that we had as a concern going in to the draft, right? And like, just because the Sixers draft the guy doesn't mean that concern goes away. But like, I do understand that there might be a role for him on this team eventually because they need shooting, and that works in pretty much every lineup. So yeah, he was probably he wasn't the biggest takeaway there. I got about 2 or 3 ahead of him, but it was good to see him get some shots up for sure.
No question about it. And that's just a great sign to see, and it gets people a little bit more excited for the next televised game that they're allowed to see and see what he does. Of course, they'll look at the numbers, look at some highlights that the Sixers may post on their socials on Friday against the Minnesota Timberwolves, where they will be playing from Iowa. I think it's Iowa City, where they're taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves, and it won't be televised. But with it, Sixer fans are going to be looking for those highlights to see exactly what Jared McCain did, looking for that box score to find out exactly what he did in that particular game, following as closely as they can to see if he can now do that against a team like the Minnesota Timberwolves, whether it's Rob Dillingham out there, Nikhil Walker-Alexander out there, Alexander Walker out there in that second unit, or even, hey, he's logging some minutes against Mike Conley. These guys are veteran defenders, minus Dillingham, who knows how to go out there and defend these guys, how to take that away. Has some length also on defense, especially when we're speaking about Nikhil Alexander Walker and seeing how to close out. How does he do it? Is he able to still get that no-dip shot off quickly in rhythm, still get his shot off form-wise, and have it at least be a good shot where he's not rushing? So we'll certainly talk about it on Wednesday after we see how that goes, and then they play the Boston Celtics in the back-to-back on Saturday. Bad scheduling by the schedule makers for the preseason. But that said, a good start for Jared McCain. More good start for Guerschon Yabusele. He was one that we talked about quite a bit during the pregame show. That was one of Rich's guys. Same for Derek Bodner. We'll talk about Yabusele a little bit more in his debut back in the NBA after some seasons away. Looked pretty good. We'll talk about him on the other side right here on the PHLY Sixers postgame show. And we have to tell you, look, maybe you're in Iowa and you want to go to the game. I don't know. If you are in Iowa and you want to go to the game, Game Time has tickets for you. A way for you to see your team. You're living in Iowa. How often do you get a chance to see your Philadelphia professional basketball team in Iowa? Maybe this is the time, and the place for you to go is Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out of the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands and thousands of tickets. Not just sporting events, of course. You can also get some concert tickets, some theater shows. How about some comedy shows as well? There was one that we wanted to go to over the weekend, but we just got back in town from the Bahamas, and it was a little tough because we were a little jet lagged to make it. But when we did look them up, there were some tickets available on Game Time. Curated deals make it easy to find the best price on great seats. The super deal, seat views before you buy, so you're not obstructing your view when you're trying to see whatever performance you're trying to catch. And lowest price guaranteed, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, etc. And make sure that you also have the idea and the knowledge of the lowest price guarantee, as we mentioned, but the Game Time ticket coverage as well, where your purchase is covered for the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Also, have to tell you about our friends from TrueMark Financial. We speak about them so much. The pickleball tournament that they had this summer, the golf outing that they were a part of as well. The credit union is a fantastic place. And if you're looking to have some money, get ready for the holidays, TrueMark Financial is the place for you to go with their Rewards Visa credit card. Earn rewards for each purchase using TrueMark Financial's Rewards Visa credit card and redeem them for travel and retail gift cards. So after you spend all that money on the holidays, you get some redeeming points there for the travel and those retail gift cards that you can use as well, maybe for yourself after you take care of everybody else. Build credit through timely payments and low credit utilization. Enjoy fraud protection with features like zero liability. They have their traditional savings accounts, money market accounts as well, and certificates that you can do a little bit more research on when you go to TrueMark Financial, speaking to the great people at that financial institution. TrueMark Financial is federally insured by the NCUA and is an equal opportunity lender. For more information, visit truemark.com/PHLY.
So Winona said Lowry did Lowry things, and I agree with that. And I would say the main thing he did was he passed the ball really well. Now, obviously, again, like there's some open passing lanes against these guys, but he had a nice hit-ahead pass to Yabusele. And there was another play, actually, that I think the Sixers should be able to use a lot this year. I think maybe if you change Kyle Lowry and turn Paul George into the ball handler, they ran a Spain pick and roll, which basically means Yabusele sets the first screen for Kyle Lowry, and then Tyrese Maxey, as an excellent shooter with gravity, kind of like what they used to do with JJ Redick, sets a back screen for Yabusele, rolling to the paint, and then Maxey pops out as well. Lowry, great pass to Yabusele on that one. I think Tyrese could eat on that play. It's just a really tough thing to guard. So that was a good start from him. But I think overall, and this is what we're going to get into this segment, the guards were, Lowry did Lowry things. Tyrese did Tyrese things. I think the most interesting thing from the game were the two centers that the Sixers played, right? And I think we should start with Yabusele.
By the way, Kyle Lowry, 5 assists in his 9 minutes and 41 seconds.
Yeah. Look, he passed it good. And I mean, look, he's, again, I know some people think maybe he should not be playing or whatever, but I will say, and I think that'll be proven as the season, goes along. Mm-hmm. But the one thing that is not gone is his brain, right? And he's still like thinking the game at an elite level. Okay. So the big guys.
Yep.
Yabusele. Mm-hmm. Were you I guess I really didn't put a ton of thought into this before the game. Were you like completely surprised that it was him and not maybe a Dembona that was the backup center?
No, just because, again, day one of training camp, Nick Nurse speaking to the media, and he talked about Caleb Martin, Tyrese Maxey, and Yabusele was one of them with the energy, everything on day one. And then you just kept hearing day after day after day about how good he has looked, how well he has played. And Nick Nurse speaking about occasionally wanting to try out that small ball 5 role with Guerschon Yabusele. He may not have the height, but in today's NBA with his girth, he can handle himself there. And when we talked about being light on his feet, he can move. So while he may not have that rim protection that we would expect from, let's say, a Dembona as that 5-man coming off the bench, he does have the experience as a pro and just the ability to move his feet, box out the nearest guy, and attack the board and get that rebound should they do what they need to do the right way of defending that particular play and causing a tough shot attempt. So because it was the opponent, not having a lot of height there.
Yeah, we don't know yet.
Yeah, that for tonight, I certainly understand it because there wasn't much resistance, number one, that he had to worry about when protecting the rim. And then also, were there many people taller than him out there tonight? So it made sense to try it out tonight. Now, we'll see against Rudy Gobert or Naz Reid or whoever else they may have as a backup 5 for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Luke Garza got some run against the Lakers that I saw over the weekend. Maybe it's him.
Preseason legend, Luka Garza.
Yeah, he looked good in that game against the Lakers. And so with that, still a guy with some height, but also is one that is more prone to shoot some outside shots than play back to the basket in today's NBA, at least from what I've seen so far in his young NBA career. So we'll see how it goes against them and the Boston Celtics and going forward. But for tonight against the Breakers, I could see that and getting Yabusele's feet wet at the 5, giving him some extended minutes and see what he can do at that position.
It worked out for him tonight because the Sixers small ball center, Yabusele, I mean, not only were they able to play him as the small ball 5, but he was getting like deep seals in post position and transition.
And guess who's back there? Me.
Yeah, I know.
And height, because Parker Jackson Cartwright, who was really impressive, by the way, with the game high 26 points, he was the one rotating and was trying to slow him down at the rim.
And Yabusele was looking like Joel Embiid in his best version.
Wasn't even close.
Just getting deep post position. So again, you do have to adjust for the opponent here. It's going to get a little bit harder, I would say, starting next game. But I didn't really even think too much about him as a potential backup 5. I think
as the main backup 5 or an option as a backup 5?
As the main backup 5.
No, because we always talked about it, and you watch, and we all discussed this together. We talked about him as just being a small ball 5 when the opportunity presented itself, depending on the opponent.
And I wonder if maybe he develops into that role. And I think part of it, Devon, is I kind of just looked at this this roster, and he is really the only 4 in terms of size,
Yes.
right? And bulk and girth, as you said.
Aaron says, girth alert. Yes, absolutely.
He's got a little junk in the trunk.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
So he, but like you're right, in the modern NBA, like sometimes those guys who are 6'8" and have that size, if you can put the right type of size and physicality on the wings, versatility, those guys can play at the 5. And I gotta say, if he actually can be, let's say not even a full-time backup 5, but like a 60% of the time backup 5. Okay, if the other team has
opponent base,
has Andre Drummond and a guy that's just gonna destroy you on the boards, maybe he's not gonna work out. He becomes a much more valuable player, right? Like if he gives you the versatility where he can play both at the 4 and the 5, and he can give you, let's say, 10 minutes a game at the 5, 10 minutes a game at the 4. Like he just gives you a degree of versatility that you really didn't have last year, right? Because I remember last year, man, I love B-Ball Paul, but the calls to play him at the 4 just because of the potential defense, like it just wasn't gonna work. He couldn't shoot. He couldn't handle that. Now I'm not saying Yabusele can, because I agree. Somebody in the chat said that his release from 3 was pretty slow. He made the one trail 3 where McCain got into the paint, kicked it back out to him. That was nice. But that's the big question with him, right? Can he be enough of a shooter from 3-point land? And that's, I will say though, it's a lot easier to do as a backup 5 than a 4. Like you're called on to make more threes in the modern NBA and shoot it quicker and be more of a threat. When you play backup 5 and the other team basically has a traditional big in there, like that slow release they're going to give you time to shoot it. So if he can unlock playability in one way or another, whether he can just hold up on the defensive end or he can make enough threes on the offensive end, that could make him a much more valuable player. And it was a good start for him.
So I do think, like we saw tonight, I do think it is opponent based.
Yeah.
Because if it's the Boston Celtics and Kristaps Porzingis gets to start, Al Horford's coming off the bench. Al Horford may be in size, they can, go up and get against each other head to head. But Al Horford is a savvy vet that knows exactly what he's doing out there. And he might take advantage a little bit of Guerschon Yabusele, at least in the beginning. As the season goes along, gets his feet underneath him, gets comfortable with the NBA game, and again, shows and proves that he can play that position, we might be wondering about it. But if they are going to play, let's say, Charlotte, and it's Nick Williams, Williams gets to start, and Richards is the guy coming off the bench.
Mark Williams and Nick.
I switched their names.
I got to say, you know more about Charlotte centers than most people.
Yeah.
So I got to say,
by the way,
even getting their first names right, and mixing their last names up is good.
By the way, I like them both as young guys. I don't know if they're starters in the NBA.
By the way, I like Nick Richards, man. I got a little bit of hope for Nick Richards.
Yes,
I still do too. But he's got to get out of there, man.
Yeah,
he's got to get
right. You got to get out of there. You got to get out of Detroit. Those are certain places you have to get out of.
You know what I will say? One other ridiculous Charlotte thought, because look, we got to fill an hour tonight. Anyway.
We're good.
Anyway, I actually think Charles Lee could be a pretty good coach.
I do too.
Yeah,
I do too.
So I
adding Josh Green also is a nice pickup for them.
And now that MJ's not their owner, so okay, Charles Lee is a coach. MJ's not their owner. Brandon Miller showed a little bit last year. Okay, maybe things are turning around a little bit in Charlotte, but
and they at least have 2 veterans. And while you might question them both offensively, and one in particular with his emotions and does he care enough and all that kind of stuff, in Williams and Green, Grant Williams and Josh Green, they're at least 2 veterans that can defend in today's NBA. For those other players of Brandon Miller and Ball, where we know Ball doesn't care.
Just playing nonsense,
and we have no idea about Miller if he can defend, but he can score. Looks more, for the role that he's in. We'll see. But the fact that playing against those 2, while they're both bigger and more athletic, he might be able to get away with it against them because they're not as skilled back to the basket. Right? Yeah, exactly. And face-up game is not there. Same if you go to Detroit and it's Jalen Duren and then Isaiah Stewart, who everybody knows I like Isaiah Stewart. I wanted the Sixers to look at him as a potential guy just because you want some nastiness on the team. But that might be different because Duren is a legit big in this league, and he's going to rebound like crazy. And while he does not have back-to-the-basket face-up game, the effort and hustle is always there. He's going to get his. And then Stewart is just a physical guy who does what he will match Yabusele. Can you match his in today's league? So it will be performance-based, based on the opponent. and how that will look. And I ask you that since we're talking about it, when you say primary backup minutes to Drummond, how many minutes are we talking? Are we talking 15 to 20? Are we talking
with Drummond, you might
13
need
to
more.
17?
Yeah.
Right, because Embiid, Drummond's playing that 15 to 18.
Hopefully, right?
Right.
You know, honestly, in
regular
past years,
season.
it might have been, 10 to 12, which is probably, Joel, you're playing a little bit too much.
Exactly. That's why
games.
we bump it up a little bit now.
Exactly.
But for him, because we can't expect Bona to play that many minutes as a rookie, they're probably going to have to get a look. Well, how does it look?
They're probably going to time it up so Joel's going to sit against some of the bad teams too, where they think they actually can get away with this, right? There might be a back-to-back where they see, they see Indiana the first night and they say, all right, that's a good team. We want to get Joel in shape. We're going to let him run up and down the floor against those guys.
Right.
But then that second night against Charlotte, and you're right. If Drummond plays, like, realistically, you're not playing Drum as many minutes as a starter as you're playing Joe.
27. Yeah.
So you're going to need more from him. And
so I'll ask you this, too.
I feel better about it than, us trying to pigeonhole PJ Tucker into the starting
If
five.
they could do that, why not Yabusele, right?
I'd rather give Yabusele a try than PJ Tucker 5 years past the point when he could actually do that.
So I do have a question about this, and we'll get to that after we finish this up, because we have a lot of questions in the chat that we need to get to, but we are early getting to our guys. It's the preseason. So everything is wrapped up, it seems like.
Well, Joel Embiid's not playing tonight either.
And we're checking in right now with Kyle Neubeck, live from the center, post-game, for our very first post-game conversation after a meaningful basketball game as the preseason goes.
What up?
What's up, man? That was a fun one. A nice 100-point victory.
I would say it was fun for, about 2.5 quarters, and then it turned into the Sixers are up by 50 plus points, and we're not really learning a whole lot. But yeah, I mean, just to get the Sixers back, you get the Tyrese Maxey flurry to start the game, Yabusele at the 5. We're just seeing goofy stuff all over the place. So it was exciting. I'm not trying to rain on everybody's parade. And obviously, Jared McCain, nice little shooting performance to open his account in the NBA. So good stuff all around.
So that's where I'll start. I'll start with Jared McCain and his shooting. A couple of things that you didn't like. You saw a turnover here, little miscommunication there. Defensively, he wasn't all that great. You see it, people will see that in your notes as they check out your work at allphly.com for the postgame notes. But the shooting again, Kyle, like we all talked about on draft night, training camp, certainly summer league while we were there, and now to start the preseason, it's all about his shooting. And while the competition was the breakers, it's also about seeing if he can shoot from that NBA three-point line. And everything that came from training camp while we were there, he followed that up, at least to start things off with his first performance with that really good shooting from the outside.
Yeah, look, I think Derek said this in the middle of the game while we were on press row, that a lot of his games in summer league felt like we were saying, yeah, we saw a bunch of other stuff. I just wish he would make some shots. And tonight was really the opposite. It was, some of the other stuff was not that great. And the defense, I thought especially, was tough sledding. But he shot the heck out of the ball. And he showed exactly why he was coveted coming out of Duke. And look, he's going to have nights where it's either one or the other. As a rookie, you're hoping that eventually he can tie it all together, turn it into – we get the full Jared McCain basketball package. But just to see him start the preseason with a good shooting night, I think that probably settles him down a little bit, right? Like when you're a rookie, just to get, even if it is against the breakers, even if it is a preseason game, he talked a lot at the podium after the game about, it meant so much to just like put an NBA jersey on. This is a moment he's dreamed about for so long, and compared it to like, it's really only like 2K that I would be able to have this experience. So to have kind of the, the nervous jitters and butterflies you get as a first game for a rookie and still shoot like that, that's the most important thing. You get this one under your belt, move on to the next one. Hopefully you can sustain it.
Kyle, Devon and I were talking about Yabu playing the 5. And I think just looking at this roster, maybe I should have foreseen this, but I don't know, just because they had such an obvious hole in terms of, let's not even say power forwards, but power forward traditional power forward size players that he sort of filled that role. So I guess now that we saw him as the main backup five, at least in the first game, again, it's against the New Zealand Breakers. So, we got a long way to go here. What do you make of him playing in that spot and kind of all the things he did on the floor?
Yeah, look, so I think Nick has talked a lot already about he views Yabusele as a front court guy, right? Not necessarily as one position. So I was prepared to see Yabu at least a little bit at the 5 tonight. I was surprised that was first minutes on this team are being played there. So I thought offensively he looked great a lot of the time. There were a couple record scratch moments as a shooter. I would have liked to see him load up and let it go. But I thought he had, his hands were soft as a short roll guy. He absolutely bullied anytime he got a smaller matchup on him, right? Where it was just, and look, I know he looks big on TV and all that, but Devon would tell you when we were in training camp down in Bahamas and you actually see him up close, he is built like a linebacker, basically. And so he's capable of just running these guys over. I don't know how much you learn about him tonight when he did have such a physical advantage over so many different guys. And the Breakers are, with all due respect, a little lacking in that department compared to the average NBA team. But I thought he showed, good versatility on offense. The other side of the ball is where small ball lives or dies, right? So his ability to rebound, his ability to potentially protect the rim, that's all going to be watched very closely by all of us. I think the good news is, and I asked Nick about this after the game, they have so many switchable wings that you don't necessarily have to rely on, like, hey, Yabu, clean up everything at the rim. You should be able to prevent guys from getting there in the first place. And then the onus is on him to clean the glass.
Absolutely. Kyle Newbeck joining us live from the center following the Sixers' comfortable win over the Breakers, lopsided victory. And Reggie Jackson, man, he came in third quarter after Tyrese Maxey had his scoring flurry in the first. Reggie Jackson scoring flurry in the third, 9+ minutes, sit down the rest of the way. And just, again, at least for right now, the embarrassment of riches that this team has at the guard spot to be able to go throw a guy out there, let him shoot 7 shots, score 15 points, and look as good as he did in his debut in the Sixers uniform.
Yeah, and I think if you compare what he did to Kyle Lowry in the first half, it's the exact reason you would justify having both guys on the roster, right? Like Kyle is not an instant offense guy in basically any way at this stage of his career, but he's someone who's setting the table for everybody, right? I think Yabusele specifically, who we just talked about, got a lot of those quick entries from Kyle. And so when you need somebody who's a setup guy, you can turn to him. On a night where you need, just a spark off the bench, you need some scoring. Maybe Tyrese doesn't have it. Maybe McCain is getting minutes and he's struggling. Whatever the case may be, Reggie Jackson, someone you can give the ball to, and that's someone who can pretty reliably at least get his own shot. And I think best case scenario would be getting his own shot, but also having that built-in chemistry with Andre Drummond in things like pick and rolls and different actions. So as much as Devon, I've harped on this show about, they have all these guys who are shorter than me on the team, and how are they going to put together a full rotation with that roster quirk in mind? But I do think you can see exactly what Reggie brings, that it might not be that often, but there will probably be 5 games at least this year where they need some instant offense. And that's a guy I think you can turn to, even if he's sat for weeks at a time.
So, Kyle, I'm going to bring up a subject that Devon and I, shockingly, 39 minutes into the pod, have not talked about yet, because you mentioned record scratches with Yabusele, a big man who did not record scratch twice, not only on a corner
drum
three,
god, baby,
but an above the break three. I mean, you should have heard the noise I made when you took that above the break three. I mean,
I tried to warn him, Kyle. I told him.
Wow. So what's the deal here? Is this just are we just goofing around in the preseason, or is this like actually a real thing? I mean, like I will say, in fairness, he made the corner three. He made it.
Yeah. And the form looks good. And on top of all that, which is the most important thing, I think Nick Nurse and the coaching staff want him to shoot threes. So this was something that came up in training camp where I approached Drum. I was like, look, I saw you after practice. You're taking threes, and that's not really a thing that you've done. Was this something that was a point of emphasis over the off season? Was it? And he was like, this is, if you see me doing something, it's what the coaches want me to do. Like, I'm here to do a job. So if you see that, that means I'm getting. And so Nick came out after the game tonight and said, I think that Andre is more skilled than maybe he's been able to show at times. And here's the other thing, Rich. You're going to think I'm crazy, but I'm going to take this a step further.
Oh, I know what you're about to say, but say it.
I do not think it's out of the question, and not as like a they have to do it thing. I think we might get Joel Embiid, Andre Drummond minutes. I am not even a little bit kidding. I think that's something you have to prepare for. I think that this is, a small part of that, but if it's going to happen, Joel's going to be the floor spacer, right? Like, he's the guy that we say, you bomb away.
What do you mean? You can play 5 out with Drum and Joel.
but I'm dead serious. I think that's something we might see sooner rather than later, and I think this is a small piece of that.
You know what's funny? Remember they 2 years ago they would never play those guys for obvious reasons, but they played them at the end of that crazy Minnesota game where they threw them both on the floor to rebound. I think that would be absolutely hilarious if they played those two guys together. So I will say I don't think it's going to work. I'm sorry. I just turned into the old school basketball guy. Like there's no way that's going to work. Now, maybe the old school basketball guy just loves rebounding, so maybe he would actually love this, kind of the old school too big look or whatever. But you know what? I'll say this. I'll support it. Go for it. Give us a few minutes.
Get nuts.
It's the regular season. God, how many regular seasons have we been through with these guys? Like, if you want to light a few minutes on fire while making us all laugh, that's fine. Go ahead. That's all. You go ahead.
He's not Paul George, right? I mean, Paul Reed.
No.
You mentioned the Paul Reed experiment.
Yeah, it is funny that they would never do the Paul Reed experiment. They did it a couple times, but, like basically leading with, all right, Drum, you're going to get some minutes at the 4.
I cannot wait.
I'm excited because Devon and I, the whole Olympics, were like, man, we want not only the double big lineup, I want triple big. I want Bam, I want AD and Joel all on the floor at the same time. So and granted, Bam Adebayo and Anthony Davis in their current form, a little bit different situation, but I think they're going to give it every opportunity to work. And by every opportunity, I think they'll try it a few times and be like, what were we thinking? But I do think it's in their minds collectively right now. That's what I would say.
I can't wait then.
It's going to be a fun time, man. Well, the next game is not until Friday against Minnesota. That will not be televised, so we'll have a 3 p.m. show on Friday, but we will be with everybody on Saturday following the Boston game because that one appears to be a televised game. So, Kyle, we want to let everybody know, make sure to read allphly.com to check out Kyle's instant observations from this game. And Derek will have some stuff there as well. We appreciate you joining us, man. We'll see you tomorrow at 3 o'clock right here on our show.
Yeah, quick plug. I'm pretty sure Derek is in the locker room talking with Maxey and maybe some other people, or at least was until recently. So should be some other stuff coming out from this game. And I think there will be another follow-up from me tomorrow because I'm an insane person and 1,300 words on a preseason game simply is not enough. So take care, fellas. See you tomorrow.
Safe trip home, man. Appreciate it. Kyle Neubeck live from the center. I tried to tell you, man. And it's funny because, go ahead.
I think it's because I've been on the Phillies and the Eagles kick or whatever, that I just was not prepared to get into the weeds on this level for the Sixers. And if Nick Nurse is actually going to do this, I mean, I was not prepared for the weeds, man.
They sent us to the Bahamas for a reason, to see these things and to find it out. We saw it. We teased it on the pregame, and we saw it in this game. It was one of my things to focus on for this game. And as soon as he rose up for that corner 3, I said, Rich, bring. And he nailed it right from the corner, short corner 3 with some good form on it as well. And it was a nice make. The top of the break one, I mean, the top of the key one, that was not so much, but corner, bang. Knock it down.
It's so funny that at this time last year, PJ Tucker was still on the team, and he would not have taken that corner.
No,
three.
he would not. Well, he would have if it was wide open. The way that Drummond shot it with somebody closing out.
He needed his feet cemented into the ground.
You're 100% right.
And by the way, once he took two, he wasn't taking another one.
No, well, he did show up in that Boston game 7.
I'm talking at the beginning of last year.
Okay, Game 7 that year, he did his part in the first half, and then nobody else showed up. By the way, reports are that PJ Tucker and the Clippers are negotiating their agreement to buy out. You mentioned him too many times, man. Is it happening?
Oh, I hope not. And by the way, I really, when I was on the beat, like interviewing PJ, I really enjoyed him. Like, I think he was like the perfect blend of smart and tough at the same time. He was too old, man. Yeah, that's all.
He really understands the game. Really knowledgeable, understands the game. I mean, to do all the things that he did, which kept him in his league for so long, of course he knows the game, but sometimes Father Time catches up, and
he was so underpaid for his entire career. So good on Daryl for giving him that contract at the end of his career, where he's got to negotiate a settlement with the Clippers. But yeah.
So Kyle mentioned the thing I wanted to talk to you about before we went to the break. We'll do that when we come back from this break. A question from SKCH16 in regards to the front court. We'll do all that when we get back. Fire it up, drum! Right here, PHLY Sixers Postgame. All right, we got to tell you about, this is a night to really choose chill. It was a preseason. With all due respect, it was the Breakers. And we got 4 players scoring a team best 15 points, and it was not a sweat at all tonight. We're talking PJ Tucker. We're talking about it all. Put your feet up. Choose chill after a night of a cool victory and a day after a big win for your Philadelphia baseball team, after having you sweating and biting your nails the entire evening as they even the series up in their divisional series matchup. When you do that, when the mountains turn blue, it's as cold as the Rockies. Coors Light is a cold lager, cold filtered, and cold packaged for a smoother finish. When you embrace a chill mindset, it's a good time to choose chill and crack open a Coors Light, especially after a tough victory last night for the baseball team and an easy one tonight in the preseason for your basketball squad. Coors Light is mountain cold refreshment, crisp and refreshing as the Colorado Rockies. Make the most of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Also have to tell you about our presenting sponsor here tonight on our post-game show. And for a good amount of time, they took care of us while we were in the Bahamas for the training camp coverage. And now the same for preseason. That's our good friends, my personal good friends, the Rothman Orthopedics, the folks at Rothman Orthopedics. Yes, are you having achy joints, cramping hands, your back bothering you? My back bothers me sometimes. I had a friend, I was talking to them a little bit earlier. Their back was bothering me. You know what I said? You got to go to Rothman because they will take care of you. They got you. No worry. 50 years of passion and personalized, specialized care from Rothman Orthopedics and their mission, high quality, compassionate, and affordable care rooted in research leading to new treatments and better outcomes overall. Rothman's 200-plus fellowship-trained physicians subspecialize in specific areas of the body and a multitude of orthopedic services, including hip, knee, spine, shoulder, and elbow, foot and ankle, hand and wrist, sports medicine, physical medicine, rehabilitation, orthopedic oncology, and trauma and fracture care as well. Year over year, Rothman consistently performs among the highest volume of knee, hip, shoulder, and ankle replacements in the country at over 660,000 overall. So if you're feeling some pain, if you're struggling a little bit and you need to get some things repaired, as serious as an ACL and Achilles like myself, Rothman is the place for you. Rothman Orthopedics specialize in orthopedics, and you visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY to learn more and make an appointment today. And I do have to say this about Rothman because Bree and I, we were stars in front of the camera, Rich, when Rothman had to do a feature on me about my recovery and my injury and being a big part of Rothman Orthopedics. So if you want to look at that, they put that out there, and I'll make sure I retweet it and all. And Rothman, it is Rothman Ortho on Twitter. So that's at Rothman Ortho. They put it out there. I haven't even sent it out and retweeted, so I'll just retweet it right now.
Oh,
and
can't wait to watch this.
Yeah, so
after we're done,
little conversation, little video, right? Me and Bree shooting some hoops out there on our Pop-A-Shot for the Rothman video. So it was really cool connecting with the Rothman people again after the years that they've helped me. We love to be a part of them going forward for the video overall. So yes, go check it out at Rothman Ortho on Twitter and see the video, see the story as I tell my story about my recovery overall. And those great people helped me out, and they're part of our show, and they have been for quite some time here on the PHLY Sixers show. So a couple of things. First, with the Yabusele piece, SKCH16 says, Devon, the Sixers are weak at the 4 spot. Who do you have starting and backing up there? So starting, SKCH16, it's going to be the wings. Kelly Oubre, Caleb Martin, and Paul George. So Paul George technically is your starting 4, your power forward, but they're switchable wings. Your backup could be Embiid, could be Yabusele. I'm just kidding. Come on. Could be Yabusele. Could be Yabusele. If he continues to play this way, SKC, then it could be Yabusele. They can go a lot of different directions with that.
Could be KJ.
Could be KJ.
Could be Rick. I know
Ricky.
The chat is asking for Rick content.
This is the show, man.
Look,
go get him, Rick. We couldn't go get him, Rick, a lot tonight because it was too much.
It's too much.
He had too many points he scored and too many highlights, especially that dunk when he went down the middle and just decided one hand, bang, bring it together and snuff it. But
look,
get him, Rick.
He was shot out of a cannon tonight. He was excellent. He was great. I guess the reason we are talking about him so late in the show is that against that team, like the athleticism is just so overwhelming that it's not going to be replicable to an NBA game. Now, he might out-athlete a bunch of NBA teams, but he's going to have to work harder to do it than that. I mean, it was just, he was moving at a different speed. He was just so much stronger at the rim. He played great, by the way. I'm not saying anything negative about Rick. I'm just saying that, like, against that team, his strengths are going to show up more than the average game. But, like, look, when we're talking about the 10 or 11 guys who all did positive things, Ricky's probably towards the top of the list. He just completely overwhelmed those guys athletically. So he was great.
No, he really was, man. And that's the luxury that they have right now, SCH, because they can go a lot of different directions with their rotation overall. And when Kyle talked about Embiid and Drummond on the floor, the primary backup will probably be Yabusele, but it could be KJ Martin, and even getting a little more creative with Ricky Council, and then the whole Embiid Drummond stuff at the front court 4 and 5. It's going to be fun to see. But Ricky has to protect the basketball. He has to continue to show that energy and that effort on some loose balls. There was one that kept bouncing right in front of him, which was an offensive rebound that he could have snatched up. And he did. I thought he should have gotten it, and he did not. But continue to do that, 2-hand rebound, get up there, sky grab that board, and he will have that opportunity to most certainly go out there and earn those minutes. So bringing it back to the conversation before Kyle jumped in and then Kyle mentioning it, when we talked about situational Yabusele as the 5, my thing to add to you and the conversation was, does it matter when you have those wings that can help team defend and gang rebound? So he may not be a shot blocker to protect the paint, but when that dig down for that double team happens very quickly, the rotations happen where they're just moving all around the perimeter to pick up the help, to get closer to that guy on that strong side, to pick up that man where it's not an open shot. The ball swings, and they start rotating now to the weak side to pick up that other open man. Does that help with that decision of Yabusele, non-rim protector, but team overall defense with those wings creating havoc?
100%. I mean, that was the big issue with Paul Reed last year. I mean, Paul Reed was not perfect last year, but I feel like after all the games, there were people who were not happy with him, and I get it. Like, he was just a normal kind of up and down backup center. But their issue was he was a switch big and they were small and unathletic on the perimeter. So it's like you're saying, if you are more athletic, if you are able to keep the ball in front of you more often, then all he's got to do is box the big guy out, right? Which is easier said than done. But if he doesn't have to put out a bunch of fires like Joel Embiid is usually tasked with.
Intangibles, Rich. Intangibles.
So,
put a body on him.
If he's just able to use his physicality and be able to box out people with that big butt of his. I mean, man, him and Lowry on the same team, by the way. The Sixers are kind of the corner in the derriere market here right now. But I agree with you. I think they're better equipped, right? That was why you went out and you got Paul George and Caleb Martin. That's why. And I think Ricky, if he can crack the rotation, can fit into one of those switch groups, right? Where you're able to keep the ball in front of you. And now the fact that Yabusele's not going to block any shots doesn't matter quite as much. And that was why PJ Tucker was good at that in Houston, because they all kept the ball in front of him, even Harden back then too. Mm-hmm. So look, I think they're probably better equipped even outside of Yabusele to play small ball 5, because I think their perimeter defense is going to be improved this year. Now we'll see. Like Kyle mentioned the point about, there's a bunch of guys who are shorter than him on the team. Well, if you play 2 of those guys at the same time, then I think playing a small ball 5 is tougher. But there are lineups you would think in theory you could get to that would be able to do that.
And one more from Eugene Ross, who says, "Are we talking athletic wings? Sixers?
Yeah, it's not.
Are we talking about them? Yeah, man, they have them, and it's a
different thing.
It's a good thing. We got excited when they traded for KJ Martin, Robert Covington, Marcus Morris, and Nick Batum. Now you have Paul George with Kelly Oubre, Caleb Martin.
Those guys are all good athletes.
And Ricky off the bench, who can give you about 5 to 7 minutes of energy, some fouls if you need to, right? Where you're not getting them from the other guys and picking up the fouls there. And KJ Martin, quite honestly, he may not be a traditional wing, but he's still small enough in the height, and he has the athleticism where it just fits perfectly with this group. So again, a number of wings to choose from overall for Nick Nurse and the coaching staff.
You would think, too, what has Nurse said in the offseason or even in training camp about Ricky? Because you would think that Ricky is the type of player that he would want to play. Like he loved athletic guys in Toronto.
He said, I need him to offensive rebound, run the floor, shoot and make the open shot, and continue to bring that energy that they saw last season. And it was something that they talked about in camp, that he still had that, of course.
All right, well, good start.
It doesn't hurt that one of his closest friends on the team is Tyrese Maxey either, and trust him. And now he gets to learn from Caleb Martin and Paul George. He already had Kelly Oubre, but now he gets to learn from those guys too at that wing position of how to improve his overall game.
The only thing
and comfortable of not being a undrafted guy on a 2-way, not knowing what role he had.
No, he's got some security.
Some security with his contract, being here, playing some good minutes in the regular season, and having a different role starting this second campaign off.
So I'm not worried about any of the energy stuff. He's going to offensive rebound. He's going to crash the boards. He's going to run the floor like a madman in transition. He's probably going to give you 1 or 2 good dunks a game if you get him up into the 15-minute a game range. Can he make open threes? That's a big deal. That's a big deal. And look, I mean, he's had his moments in summer league. Obviously,
he made his one tonight.
Yeah. The form isn't always perfect, but
it's his.
But like, look, can you make open shots? Because I do think, as much as Ricky Council has become a fan favorite for good reason, just for all of those hustle and those splash plays that he makes, like, he definitely has a path to being a rotation player, but he's got to make shots. That's the way this works. Absolutely.
All right, we're about to wrap things up, so we want to get to every game from here on out throughout the preseason, the regular season, and the postseason. Hopefully that goes well into June, like Joel Embiid mentioned on Media Day. We're going to bring you every game, player of the game, of who we decided the player of the game is. We're going to have some graphics. We're going to have everything here for you, player of the game. We collaborated, Rich, Bree, and I, and we decided on Jared McCain, the Rook.
And then look, it's a preseason player of the game, right?
Preseason player of the game.
Was Tyrese Maxey actually the best player on the floor?
100%. Of course. How many of those is he going to have, by the way? A ton of those.
They're saying in the chat, by the way, I don't think we got to that. His shot looked so smooth, man, especially off the dribble, right? We know Obviously, he can make shots off the dribble, but that's the next step, right? Because when he's open, particularly on the wing and the corner, like he's going to make those catch and shoot shots. He was insane. But Jared McCain, he showed us something that we needed to see. We need to see him make those threes. And I think he, in the spirit of the preseason and in the spirit of trying to learn something more about everybody else, we thought was he the best player on the floor? Probably not.
No.
But
it's about what we saw for the first time, seeing him in an NBA basketball game and calming some people's nerves. Now, it may go the other way against Minnesota or Boston. But for tonight, the first time seeing Jared McCain out there, how Nick Nurse decided to use him as an off-ball guy on the offensive end, bringing the ball up sometimes, but seeming like, again, that ball pressure might get to him just a tad bit.
I think it will.
Yeah, we see what the role is. And for him to go out there and shoot 4 for 9, you guys always talk about the volume of threes.
That's big.
They weren't bad three-point shots either. They were good shots. So our player of the game tonight, Jared McCain for the Philadelphia 76ers. So we'll do that after every game. We'll also take your input. We'll have the player of the week. We'll go with player of the month things. We have so many more things that we're going to add to our show, our pre- and post-game coverage for this upcoming 24-25 campaign. This has been a fun one. As always, great one to start off with Rich here. We always have a great time, and you're going to see Rich and I quite a bit during this season together for these pre- and post-game shows. So for everybody from Kyle and Derek at the arena, we really appreciate them. For Bree and for Rich, I'm Devon. We appreciate our presenting sponsors for our post-game show, which were Rothman Orthopedics and Bet365. We thank all of you for hanging out with us. We'll do a roll call tomorrow where we can shout everybody out. It's a later night, so we want to make sure we give everybody time to sign off. Well, we want to roll call everybody tomorrow, shout everybody out. But we appreciate you checking in as the Sixers back in action. Preseason game number 1 against the Breakers. They take care of business, 139-84. 4-player score, 15 points as the team best. 15 points as the team best, led by Jared McCain, Tyrese Maxey, Reggie Jackson, and Guerschon Yabusele. Tomorrow we'll be back at 3 o'clock for our usual PHLY Sixers show. And we also want to remind you that if you did not catch our conversation with Steven Jackson from the All the Smoke podcast, they will be in town on Wednesday at the TLA on South Street. Go check out allthesmokeproductions.com/events to check out what they have in store from their guests. Get some tickets. Their book drops tomorrow. Check out our conversation on our YouTube page and wherever you get your podcasts as well. Bree put those up wherever you get your podcasts. Go check it out. Our conversation with Steven Jackson from the All the Smoke podcast. It was a really fun, wide-ranging conversation about the Sixers, Paul George, Allen Iverson, all of their post-basketball success that they have had. Please go check it out. Give it a like, subscribe. And we don't have the bell in here right now, but we'll ding the bell icon. You will get that alert when it's time to get ready for the show. So everybody have a great rest of your night. We'll talk to you at 3 o'clock. See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.